Welcome to Journey from Jacob. From our first breath to our last heartbeat, we are all on a journey. Jacob was a biblical character whose journey is documented for our benefit. Like all of us, there were unforgettable moments along the way which required decisiveness. One of those decisions determined his destination. We will not only discuss Jacob's journey, but Israel's as well, right up to date. May this podcast inspire you to make choices along your way that will benefit others and guide you to the destination we all long for.
Shalom and welcome back to Journey from Jacob, a ministry of Comfort My People. Today I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path of Journey from Jacob's story to something that's very relevant to today and the unfolding of a vision that we've had for over a year and a half that God has given us and developed through time that is going to take place very shortly in Israel. So before I do, I want to share with you something about God's unfailing love, which he repeats throughout the Psalms in different places. His unfailing love, the love that is covenant in its root, its foundation, its covenantal love. Unfailing love means it's got to succeed. And so this is his promise to those he loves. He wants us to succeed in accomplishing his will as he reveals it. So this is the verse that's been telling to me lately, hopefully for you as well. Psalm 34:24 says, "The Lord be exalted, who delights in the well-being of his servant." This is something that we need to know about God, and I hope you've seen this already in Jacob's life and in Abraham's life as we went through it, that God delights in the well-doing of his people. That's why we said the covenant, the first sign of it was laughter. God wants us to face this world with the confidence that he is with us and he wants us to succeed. He takes delight in us and in the well-being of his servant. You know, to me it's really telling because I was always a doer of things. I worked with my hands all my life and always had to have an end product or I wouldn't be paid. And so it was part of my makeup to get something done. But this doesn't say that God delights in well-doing. It's not that he delights in what we do or what we accomplish or how we perform. It's when we are being. It's a state of mind, a state that indicates the relationship we have with him. And he delights in that. When we are at peace with him and in peace with those around us, we're living according to his will. We're walking by his spirit into the world that is in such great need. So the world, again, and it's like one after the other, and it doesn't take much to pay attention, but we do need to pay attention. If ever, don't turn off the news. I know it's painful, but we need to know it, not from one source, because there's so much false news out there. But again, the world is reeling like a drunken sailor, though. The world hardly takes notice, and don't be part of that. Iranians have not been in the news for good, but recently, very recently, within the last 3 weeks, it's been mounting, but in the last 3 weeks especially, the Iranians, the citizens of Iran, have found the courage to openly profess that they're done with this ruthless regime that has brutally governed them for the last 5 decades. This Islamic regime responded, though, publicly, so without fear of the world watching, which they tried to hide, but they responded publicly by executing between 12 to 20,000 citizens, their own citizens, on the streets and in the hospitals they went to for help from the healing from the gunshot wounds, and in jails across the nation. They've been imprisoned thousands, tens of thousands of their own citizens. Why? Because they don't like the government that has mistreated them for so long. So has there been an uprise of grief, though, and the horror of what's going on from the free world, those of us who have this freedom to express ourselves, freedom of speech? The thing that they're saying from Iran, we're hearing this, and you will too if you pay attention to newscasts that are not mainstream media, that the question from the Iranians is, where is this outcry from the world? And it's the same silence that Israel has experienced for over 2 years since October 7th, when they were brutally and savagely attacked. There's a likeness here that I want to bring out. And it's a spiritual thing that I hope that you will explore and consider. Why is this what does this have to do? Relationship with Iran and Israel makes no sense. Iran has been behind the financing of the proxies, which are Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, Iraq, Syria even, and others that have joined forces to try to destroy Israel over those last 2 years. Their nearby successes with thousands upon thousands of missiles being launched and cities burning on fire and children running for protection from the sirens constantly. I mean, this frantic sense of life in Israel. And people saying, yeah, but how about these poor Palestinians? And that's not what I'm talking about. So this isn't about trying to even out the playing field. It's Israel under assault, and at risk was their survival as a nation. So there's other things to talk about, and this is about God's fairness, his justice, and the world's unfairness and injustice. But I'm not going to deep dive into that because I'm concerned about the silence. What's going on now, is been misreported. The numbers were like 500 when it was already in the thousands, and then they went up maybe 500, 600 or hundreds. But right now, from those who are in the know, and this is not just, approximates, there's at least 12 to 20,000 citizens that have been executed, mostly in public, right on the streets, gunned down. But that unlike the accusations against Israel about genocide, they were saying, the world was just screaming, and the UN was on us, the World Court, that Israel is committing genocide. They had all these cases against them and all these world accusations. But instead of genocide, they were actually at the same time feeding the enemies that were sworn to their destruction. But this is different in Iran. And the question is, why is the world silent about them? Because the Iranians are not Jews. In fact, beneath this veiled population is a thriving group of believers in Jesus who meet underground. But they're considered, by those who keep track, to be the fastest growing church in the world. And so maybe this affects me much more, and maybe this is why I might sound a little bit emotional, but it's because I've had the privilege, along with my wife, to meet many Iranian believers beginning years ago. And the most unexpected element of meeting them was not just that they were believers, that they were born in a Shia Muslim world, that when they'd get up and go to school from first grade on, before they went from the schoolyards, this is personally told by those who escaped this, they became refugees in Europe, specifically England, and then in the United States, and received asylum status. But these were Iranian-born Muslims. And before they started the schoolyard, this is what they told us personally, and I heard the story over and over, they had to chant. They would pray, the typical prayers, but they would speak, make confession, and even sing songs about the destruction of the Jewish people and Israel as a nation entirely. They didn't consider Israel a nation. They were illegal occupiers. But this is what the school kids would chant every single morning. That gets drilled firmly into your mindset. And so I have a friend. I won't name him now, but he's someone I met in the last 6 years, and he's now living in Israel. He's an Iranian-born believer. He was in a jail in Iran, and he escaped, and he was able to escape as a newborn believer, born-again believer in Iran, and he was able to escape through Turkey, where he began to be discipled at the time when it was safe to be in Turkey, before the growth of the incredible spurt of extreme Islam took over their culture as well. But it's where in this ministry in England, my wife and I served there a few times. I served there a little more in construction work, but we met so many Iranian believers that were so loving, so spirit-filled. But the unexpected element was to hear them speak so fondly. I mean, like a love affair with the Jewish people, and so supportive of Israel. We were so welcomed there. They didn't know that, they were hosting a Jew, and my wife, as well as our little son at the time. And so in this place, they translated the Bible. The reason they did is because they fell in love with the God of Israel, the Jewish Messiah, and they wanted their people to know the same, but they had no Bible in their own language. So these people, along with English, British believers who were totally behind them and with them, but they were the ones that were scholarly, and they began to translate the Bible into Farsi. And they did. They translated in the New Testament first, and then the entire Hebrew Bible. And they not only did they translate it, they published it, beautiful, bound Bibles. And then the hard part was taking it into the nation. I won't go into the details of how they did it. They were able to smuggle it into Iran, hundreds of thousands of copies. And this spread rapidly, and this underground church, which I literally, this is hard to believe, but met the father and his adult son at the time, who they didn't begin as a church, they just began meeting in their homes, and other homes started meeting in their homes of believers who got saved through Armenian believers and started reading and teaching the Bible, and their hunger and thirst and their courage began to grow quickly, and they became martyrs quickly as they became a threat to the regime. And many died, and they would hear these deaths inadvertently because they would just basically disappear, and they didn't know what happened. But then they became very skilled at being able to smuggle people out of the country quickly. In those days, they had very good ways of doing that. It's become more difficult lately. So the population grew in both the United States and in England of those who escaped this tyranny. But they were so determined to see their people get a Bible in their hands because they knew what it would do to them and do for them. So to have a Bible in their own language and read how connected the Persian people were with these Israeli Jews because they were in captivity in their land centuries ago. Think of, there's so many. Daniel and the three Hebrew lads, Ezekiel, Zechariah, Haggai, Esther, Mordecai, Nehemiah, Ezra, the three wise men in the New Testament, and so many others that I don't want to miss, but you have to look it up. They spent time in Persia. They spent time in the courts of the kings in what was then called Elam, but this is what's now, and it's been for many years, Iran. But it's not the Iran from long ago. It's a stolen entity. And talk about an occupation and a genocide. I mean, think about these things and let's make sense of what has been said and what has not been said. So as a ministry of Comfort My People, we support this one brother that I tell you who was, born an Islamic Shiite. So we support him, and he's married to an Israeli Messianic believer. And so we support their ministry in Israel. But right from the get-go, when he moved to Israel, he began serving the people. He has a love for the Jewish people, and they recognize it, and it's genuine. He's so effective in sharing the genuine love of Yeshua because of his background and this spiritual reality that he lives by, along with his wife. And when the war broke out, he had a background as a cook, and he began to share what he knew with a man who had a restaurant, or not a restaurant, but a large facility where they made meals, large meals, catered meals. So he had this big professional kitchen. And so he and my friend got together and they decided to make meals for the soldiers. And they did, along with a lot of help. And they made a hot meal every day for 500 soldiers and then transported them to the bases because the war broke out so quick. They were not prepared for the onslaught of soldiers that started coming to these bases. And so the same thing, what in the world is an Iranian man doing on an army base? And it took a lot for that to happen, but he did. He didn't go with the deliveries, but then ultimately he did. And they received him because they saw he was real. Of course, he was interviewed and to make sure, because Iran is the supporter, the sponsor of the destruction of Israel with all these other factions. So 2 weeks ago, though, my friend texted me and told me about what happened to his brother. So this is, I knew that this outbreak on the streets of Iran had taken place, but he told me that he was notified that his brother was shot and taken prison. They thought he was taken prison. He was captured after he was shot, but they heard nothing else. That's all they heard from people that knew him, that were onlookers. They saw it happen, but they tried to find out where he was taken. No one could find out. And only recently they discovered that his brother was taken to a prison and he was definitely wounded, but they knew nothing else, but he was alive. So that was good news. But only recently, almost the exact same time, he learned that, on top of the good news, he learned that his other brother was also shot in 2 places and, wounded, and the wounds got infected, but he was in hiding. They don't know where he is, but they know he's alive. So this is, very close to home. I could hear his heart and feel his pain. So this is like my purpose. I just want to make clear. It's not to chastise anyone, especially Christians, because we are still considered the salt of the earth, the hope of the world, that this living presence of Jesus is what the world is dying for. I'm looking to inspire you to speak out. We do have these freedoms here still. Those freedoms were taken away. In 1979, they were free people until this regime came over and took over. And freedom was just another word, not a reality. 1 week from tomorrow, though, I'm leaving for Israel. And the purpose is for what we call the Mishcha event. It's a long story, but this is a vision that God gave us about a year plus and a half ago. And so it's been in preparation since then. But now we have a date, the end of this month, where we're going to have our first session, our first event for the Mishcha Center in Israel. I'm not going to disclose where, but the purpose is to bring comfort and confidence to those gathered. These will be Israelis, to those gathered, and that God will meet them. He will meet them. He will heal them. There's so much trauma. It's a nationwide dilemma. But he's going to heal them. We're believing for his healing. There's emotional healing. There's physical healing. There's spiritual healing. But these are believers that are going to come, and they know what we're seeking to do. We're not offering any kind of therapies. We're not offering techniques to feel better. But we are going to address those things. We have things in place like a sauna and a ice plunge where they could get this physical sort of this wake-up call, in a sense, to be able to think clearly. And then we're going to spend time together for 3 days. And in that time, we're going to begin with letting them know our purpose is to let them know that we personally are confident that God will heal them. And I am confident. But it may not be instantly, but it may be instantly. I mean, this is all up to God. It has to be his doing, but we believe that he's here because he does delight at the well-being of his people. And this is part of their need right now. And so we want to bring that sense of comfort and confidence to them that they will be restored in every way, and encourage them to take this road of recovery to the place of determination where they will accept and embrace the long-avoided calling from God Most High, to bring the Abrahamic blessing to the families of the earth. This has been God's calling on the Jewish people from the beginning. And there's a lot to go through in that, but we're going to discuss this to see the authentic nature of it and why it's been avoided for too long. It was not avoided. It was embraced fully in the first century. And we will briefly discuss about what happened to dismantle that. But it's time now to embrace what has been long avoided, misunderstood, and shelved, put on a shelf somewhere. Maybe this is for someone else, but it doesn't seem like it's possible. And that's a sad place to be. So we are going to accompany them. It's not something that we're just believing that it's for them. It's for us as well. But this can only happen. This sense of taking on this calling, it can only happen to bring this message of salvation in Yeshua, this message of well-being in Yeshua to the nations. It cannot happen alone. In fact, Jews are not even allowed in so many nations anymore. Israelis, especially if they're in any way recognized as being part of the IDF, which is happening all over Europe and other places. You hopefully heard about what happened in Australia only a few weeks ago, in the middle of a day where some radical Muslim, a father and son team, shot and killed, I can't remember because these things are so frequent that it's hard to keep track, of Jews gathered on a beach for just a happy time together, a celebration. Oh, so sad. But this is happening all over the world. There's so many synagogues. Just recently in Mississippi, the largest synagogue in Mississippi was burnt down. So this hatred for the Jews is not simply an Islamic thing. It's all over the globe. So if this determination and this reception of the Abrahamic blessing, which later the prophets called the light, Jesus called the light. You are the light of the world. Shine your light. You can't hide it. But it got hidden for too long and it's still hidden. This light has to be lit. It's like in Matthew where it talks about Jesus when he comes into town, he won't snuff out this wick, this smoldering wick. That's representative of Israel's calling that was so dim you could hardly see it. But he wouldn't put it out because he knew it was going to light up individual believers, and one by one that would begin to glow and spread and go into the nations as a light. This is the time. This is the acceptable time, the set time to favor Zion. But this can only happen if once their decision is made, it's followed by a growing number of Gentile Christians who will come alongside and accompany them to venture into the darkness and brokenness of a world eager to be rescued from the chaos that has covered the earth. If Jews are not allowed to go, and on their passports, one of the things that we'll say in these other countries that they can't go into certain countries. And so if they can't go, how are they going to get there? The only way they'll be able to go if they're welcomed in, and that's going to happen if Gentile Christians from different nations accept them. Not only accept them, but support their coming. Because Israel is not afloat with money. In fact, because of generous donors, this whole conference that we're having is paid for. They don't have to pay for it. There's a token fee, which is going to go to a local nonprofit there. But this is on us and on you who have been generous to help us. So this calling and the receptivity of it and the embracing it and moving forward in it, in Hebrew it's called biyachad, because biyachad means together or as one, literally as one. But in the Bible, it's called the one new man. And the one new man is so representative of the work of Jesus because on the cross, he created the one new man. And the first fruit of it is peace. The very thing that is so missing in our world today is what Jesus created on the cross 2,000 years ago in the one new man. But sadly, the one new man needs to return. Not sadly, he needs to return is the sad part, but he will return is the glad part. And together, you and I, as believers, we represent that. But literally, physically together, my Iranian friend who's in Israel, he's fighting, in a sense, for his citizenship. You could pray for that. But he is going to join me along with 12 couples, Israeli couples. Each couple has a husband who served in the IDF as a reservist. And the two of us are going to represent, even in front of them, the one new man. He being the only Gentile in the room. But he'll be the one new man as a believer because he believes in the same Yeshua, the same Messiah, the same God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we're going to represent him because we are truly brothers. We both love each other because we love Yeshua, Jesus the Messiah. So together, this is a representation, and it's a return. This is the return to the rightful role in the redemption story that we have as believers. And in this Mishcha Center, we're going to see things happen that are going to be life-changing and world-changing. Mishcha means anointed. It's the same root word as Moshiach, which means Messiah. Jesus is the anointing. Jesus is the Mishcha Center. This is in response to the age-old question that Jeremiah asked, or was asked, is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician that can cure the disease of the daughter of Zion? That's how God left that question, but there was never an answer. And the balm of Gilead was something that was real. It was real to them. It was an ointment that was used as healing, for minor wounds, basically, or burns. But it wasn't internal in nature. It didn't go any further than the external. And so it worked for those kind of things. But nothing in Israel's day at that time could cure the disease of the daughter of Zion. Why is that? Because the disease was unbelief. And they were about to go into captivity in Jeremiah's day. And that was because of unbelief. There was no balm in Gilead, and there's still no balm in Gilead, but there is a Mishcha in Israel that is longing to enter into the sorrows and the broken expectations and the lost hope and lost lives and inability to cope and no money, no future. It's just so typical right now throughout Israel in so many circles that the troubles just keep growing and they don't know what to do. There's many therapists, there's many psychologists and psychiatrists, and God help them to do or work to help these people, but it's not internal. It's temporary at best. Israel needs their Messiah. Israel needs Yeshua, the only one and true lasting Messiah who can bring peace to their personal problems, their family problems, the national problem, and the global problem. And I'm praying that you would join us to pray that God would accomplish his way, that the Mishcha, the anointing presence of Yeshua HaMashiach, would be in us, around us, and surround us. The last day we will finish on the Sabbath with a worshipful event. And then we're going to have prayer for them by different leaders in the community and pass out to them. Each couple is going to receive one of the new Bibles that the Bible Society, which is also one of our partners, that we helped you, if you've contributed, have helped to produce this, the first time in 2,000 years, plus that they'll be able to read the Bible in their own language. And they're going to have their own Bible. And this is going to be the beginning of an outburst of spiritual awakening, I am sure of. So those who come, this is what our prayer is, that they would be healed and commissioned by Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit of the living God, and with intentionality and confidence and great joy, they will go out into not their Jerusalem, but the Jerusalem the Bible talks about, which all are supposed to be going to. First, according to Jesus, Jerusalem, and then Judea, Samaria, which is a very unrestful place, and then into the uttermost parts of the world. I believe this is going to happen in rapid fire, and there's going to be joy unspeakable that those who are part of this. Sadly, there'll be others who decide to remain silent and watchers on the outside, and instead of being a part of what's happening, they're going to be wondering what happened. Don't be one of them. And I pray that if this is of any meaning to you, any value to you, this is a time to share it with people, friends, neighbors. It's very easy to share these things with a link, these podcasts. Also what we write, I pray that you would go to our website, comfortmypeople.com, and see some of the things we've posted. We have videos that we post on YouTube. Yeah, we have a YouTube channel. And so there's social media stuff going on. We don't do a lot of it. We're not forcing ourselves on other people, but we support. And we've been so blessed by the generosity of Gentile Christians who have come alongside, just like Ruth did for Naomi. And we've seen great and wonderful things happen, including this Mishcha event. Shalom and blessings.
We bless you for taking the time to consider this message. May it cause you to be fruitful and effective and lead others along the way with confidence and determination. Check out our website at comfortmypeople.com to become better informed and equipped to restore righteousness to the people of Israel, America, and beyond. Please consider sharing this and visit us on social media. Shalom and blessings.